Hi everyone, Coach Zach here. And I know it's been a while since I've shot out a video, but I'm back at it. And I've got some really important things that I want to share with you today. But just a quick update. In the last 3 months, I've been through some amazing life changes. My youngest son got married, and then a couple months later, my daughter got married. And now my wife and I are waiting for our first grandchild. And so we've had a lot going on. It's not that I've been just kicking back and relaxing, but I've had my attention focused in different directions. And now I'm back and I'm ready to share with you some important truths because this is an important time for us to know the truth. I wanted to share a cool article that I came across that talked about homeschoolers. And over the past 30 plus years that I've been working with families to help them optimize their health, we've seen a growing number of homeschoolers in our community. And when the whole pandemic came along, we saw a whole bunch more that happened that had never intended to be homeschoolers, but because of the narrative, because of the culture of what was going on in the public domains, they knew that it was time to start doing their education from the home. Not one of them, by the way, regretted doing that. I hear stories from each of them talking about how that was one of the biggest blessings. And I think that we all see that is through the adversity that we've been through and through us having to actually take and analyze, hey, are we being fed lies or are we actually getting any kind of truth here? We've grown in understanding who we are and understanding what truth is. But here's a great article. It talks about homeschoolers' top government school children in everything. They took a look at them and they looked at different standards across the board, not just in academics. They looked at academics in all different parts, in mathematics, in the writing, and every different aspect of it. But they looked at it in social skill. They looked at it in performance. They looked at it in college graduation rates. And the homeschoolers topped the public school children in everything. And I think that there's a lot we can learn from that. The bottom line takeaway for me is that for generations now, for decades, our education system, the public education system, and this is a stereotypical thing. This is just kind of a blanket statement over all of them. Not every school is the same way. But it's been about indoctrination. It's about teaching us what to think, rote memorization, learn these things that we tell you are facts and be able to repeat them back to us. And then you're going to excel in school. Instead of learning critical thinking, learning to actually assess something and to think through the process of and the rhetoric, the logistics that are involved in coming up with a good conclusion. Really in kind of applying the scientific model, which is have a hypothesis and then put together some things to actually test that to see if you're accurate or not, so that you're learning how to think, not just what you're supposed to be taught. So as a result of that, these homeschooled children are actually achieving higher, doing better things because they're learning how to think, not just what to think. The other article that I came across, and I think that it just shows the importance of us learning how to think instead of what to think, is a study that says Gates-backed scientists predict deadly climate pandemics. And so it starts off by saying a study published Thursday, this is last week, in the British medical journal Global Health warns that climate change and deforestation will cause an exponential increase in deaths from certain viruses. Researchers from Ginkgo Bioworks, a major biotech firm backed by globalist billionaire Bill Gates, studied historical trends among several viruses between 1963 and 2019. And what he found is that we're likely to see, so he's not only funding these people who are scientists that can tell us what the funders want them to tell us, but they've become prophetic as well. And so that they're actually expecting an exponential increase, in fact, a 12-fold increase in climate change infections by 2050. According to the World Health Organization's One Health agenda, One Health is actually a program they put together, climate change is the driving factor behind human health. So if you remember this, back in the 70s, we were told there was going to be a new ice age. We were going to have this freezing that was just going to freeze humanity. We were going to die. We were going to go back to having to, come out of the sludge again and go through evolution all over again so that we could become, eventually upright walking humans. That didn't happen. So then we had global warming, and that meant that, all the ice caps were going to melt and that we were going to actually see increase sea level, and that was going to take and get rid of all of the beaches we have across the world. And because of that, the ice melt that's happening, we're going to see all kinds of death and destruction take place of that. And since neither one of those happened, and we actually see that there's been no change in sea level, and that throughout history there's been changes in climate day in, day out, they've changed their agenda to climate change instead of global warming or this new ice age that's going on. So anyway, that's something that any critical thinker has already paid attention to. But right now it says that their primary focus is going to be two things. Come up with messenger RNA vaccines against climate change. So, they've been working on vaccines against everything, for every virus that's never been invented or never been identified. All kinds of bacterial infections, cancer they're working on, cocaine addiction vaccines, and now we're getting a vaccine so that we're going to be immune to climate change. So bring on whatever kind of weather changes take place, because I got my hocus pocus, and so now I don't have to worry about it again. They're working on it. The other part that they're working on is actually getting us to where we know more about what's going on. So this is actually going to be an education program for us. So again, if we're not critically thinking, they're going to tell us what we're supposed to think. And I want to point this out is that these things are actually funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, MasterCard, funded by Microsoft, which is Gates, the British government, and dozens of other partners. So we know that it's got to be good for us if this is what's happening. If you want more information, you look up data.org. And they actually operate this capacity accelerator network. And its aim is to flood the public space with research funded by the Rockefellers, MasterCard, Microsoft, the British government, other partners, research showing how everything is impacted by climate change. In Africa, for example, here's what they're doing. Where hundreds of thousands of people die each year from malaria, data.org will show how the disease's parasites are affected by the weather. The malaria victims could then be said to have died from climate change, and that's going to influence government policy so that we continue to pour billions into fixing the climate and really getting rid of humans and animals, because we're the cause of all that, right? So here's part of the agenda. Academics will create research. They create research. That's how research comes, right? You create it. You don't actually go back and look for what's happened in the past, put together strategies on testing that, eliminating as many variables as possible for those tests. No, you create it. And then you make it part of a curricula. Media operatives will publicize it. Social media censors will suppress the debate that goes against that narrative. And government lawmakers will then create the policies. So with that said, is that we got, fortunately, we got the Gates organizations. We've got the British government, who's got a great track record of taking care of humanity all over the world. We've got all these different organizations that are working on telling us how we can survive climate change, because that's going to be the number one cause of every kind of death coming at us. So with that, maybe it's time to homeschool. Maybe it's time to start learning how to think critically. Maybe it's time to start looking at this nonsense and taking and going, I'm going to dismiss that. I'm going to take and focus my mind on things that are positive, pure, good, noble, worthy of praise. And that way I can live without fear. I can live bold and empowered. And I can make decisions that are going to actually influence my world for good and for God. I hope that that'll motivate you to take and to look at what's going on around you through a lens that says we're in a great season. People are waking up. Truth is being is becoming revealed. We're seeing what truth is again, and all the lies, hypocrisy, all of the indoctrination, all of the evil that has been coming against us in all the different narratives, it's showing up and it's coming down in the name of Jesus. So hope that you guys all have a great day. Make it a great one. And until next time, this is Coach Zach.